Welcome to What's the Word on That Movie podcast play-by-play. On this episode, I am discussing Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. What's the Word on That Movie can be found on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube. Other platforms coming soon as well as video. Twitter handle is at What's the Word on 2. First letters of each word capitalized, and yes, that is the number 2. Instagram is What's the Word on That Movie, all lowercase, no spaces, and Snapchat is What's the Word on That Movie. What's has an apostrophe S, and the first letter of each word is capitalized, and each word is spaced out or try Lawrence Media 1. All lowercase, no spacing, and yes, that is the number 1. YouTube is What's the Word on That Movie. Each word is spaced out with caps at the beginning of each word, and what has the apostrophe S. Let's get to it. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is brought to you by MGM. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure opens with a scene from the future time period, San Dimas, California, year 2688. Rufus, who is played by George Carlin, is telling us the wonderful things about San Dimas. He explains it almost wasn't so because of something that almost happened 700 years ago. We then cut to San Dimas, California, 1988, where Bill and Ted are practicing guitar in a garage. Next, we get Bill and Ted in history class. They're demonstrating to the teacher in the class that they are clueless when it comes to history. After class, the history teacher tells them they need an A+ on their history report to pass the class or they will fail. Our next scene, the guys are walking across school campus. They have just left the library from what I can tell. Missy, Bill's stepmom, picks them up from school. Ted talks with his dad and finds out that if he fails this report, he will be going to military school in Alaska and there will be no more band. Cutting back to the future, what appears to be some sort of council tells Rufus it's time. The band's imminent breakup is upon them. They send Rufus back in time to help Bill and Ted. Cutting to the present time, 1988, the boys are studying. Missy brings the boys a little snack. Bill's dad joins Missy, Bill, and Ted in Bill's room and asks the boys to leave. Ted gives Bill a hard time about his dad going for it in his own room. Also, he decides to give him a hard time because his stepmom is hot, and that he asked Bill's stepmom out to prom. The next scene, our boys are studying at a Circle K. Rufus appears in a phone booth that appeared from the air. Rufus informs the boys he is here to help them with their report. Doppelgangers of the boys also appear and tell the boys that they are going to go time traveling. They will meet some princesses. Rufus is a good dude and to trust him. Then Ted tells himself to not forget to wind his watch. Ted questions trusting this advice, however Bill makes the point, why would we lie to ourselves? The boys take a leap of faith and time travel with Rufus to Austria, 1805. Rufus tells the boys France has just invaded. We are introduced to Napoleon. Rufus then tells the boys, let's go. Due to a cannonball explosion, Napoleon is blasted into the wormhole created by the time-traveling phone booth. This gives Napoleon a ride to the future, or present time rather. The boys take Napoleon into their house as he has passed out and task Ted's brother with keeping watch over him. The boys are set, they know what they need to do. As they set out to save their report, Ted's dad stops them and is planning on sending Ted off to military school tomorrow night. Having one night to pull off the most excellent adventure, the boys travel back to New Mexico 1879. Set in the Wild Wild West, they walk into a bar and order 2 beers. They then decide they must take someone back to the present for their report. Billy the Kid is the obvious choice as he was famous. They play poker with Billy the Kid and cause some trouble for him with the guys they are playing with. A fight breaks out in the bar. The boys stay seated and watch until 4 guys surround them. 2 of the guys throw the boys down the bar top. They make a run for it to ancient Greece and take Billy with them. Athens, Greece, 410 BC. They plan to pick up Socrates. Ted hears the name Socrates and the boys agree that they've heard that name before. Ted tells Bill to look him up. His name should be under Socrates. They approach Socrates and Ted philosophizes with him. Impressed by the boys' wit, Socrates journeys with the boys and Billy to England 15th century. After arriving in the 15th century, the boys ask for directions to a place of significance. They are pointed towards a castle. In the castle, they see the babes and remember they told themselves about the princesses. They plot how to meet them. The next scene, we get the boys in the castle playing around in knight's armor. While horseplaying, Ted is knocked down the stairs. After falling to the bottom, some guards walk up and stab the suit of armor. Bill thinks Ted is dead, but Ted had fallen out of his suit when it hit the floor. The boys meet the babes face to face. They ask the girls to the prom. They have to hide as the girl's father is coming to collect his daughters. The girls are being married off today. They ask the boys to help them escape. They are caught and sentenced to the Iron Maiden. Excited about the name Iron Maiden, the princess's father then orders them to be executed. The boys, that is. The executioners happen to be imposters and free the boys, who found out it was Billy the Kid and Socrates. They make their escape as they are chased by the guards. They time travel to the future and meet the council that tasked Rufus with helping the boys with their report. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. Bill and Ted let them know, hey, we will take you with us, but it's a history report, not a future report. At this time, they realize something is wrong with the time machine. Cutting back to the present time, Ted's brother has taken Napoleon out on the town. Napoleon chows down on some ice cream. Back to the boys, they wind up in Vienna, Austria, 1901, and grab Sigmund Freud. Billy the Kid lassos him, to be more specific. They then journey to grab Beethoven. Next scene is in Orleans, France, 1429. The boys pick up Joan of Arc. Then Outer Mongolia, 1209, to pick up Genghis Khan. Ted lures him into the booth with the Twinkie. After that, they nab Abraham Lincoln. As they journey through the time tunnels, they learn the antenna for the booth is broken, and that's why their time travel has become spotty. Back to the present, Ted's brother has taken Napoleon bowling. They ditch him at the bowling alley. Left to his own devices, Napoleon must now find his own way. The boys and their fellow travelers are now in 1 mil BC, and Bill is attempting to fix the time booth. They patch it up with cans and gum. They give it a go. They wind up at the very moment they met Rufus, and of course the loop is continued. Correcting their dialing mistake, they end up back in their current time. It's the next day, and they have 2 hours to get everything in order to present. Asking Missy for a ride, she refuses until they do their chores. They use the historical figures they picked up to help them. Missy gives the boys and their friends a ride to the mall. The boys show them around. The boys leave the historical figures in the mall and tell them they will be back once they find Napoleon. The boys learn that Ted's brother ditched Napoleon, and now they must put their heads together to find him. They decide they would check Waterloo, a water park, first. We cut to Waterloo and find Napoleon tearing it up on the water slide. He is in heaven. Bill and Ted have to drag him kicking and screaming away from the water park. Back at the mall, our historical figures are learning about modern-day living. Joan of Arc leads a women's aerobic exercising class. Beethoven learns about updates to modern instruments. Billy the Kid, Socrates, and Sigmund attempt to pick up some babes. Genghis tests out aluminum baseball bats in the sporting goods store. Abraham Lincoln takes a portrait. Our historical figures cause panic, excitement, and disruption and are arrested and taken to jail. Cut into the high school, we see the reports are moving along and that our boys have 1 hour left to present their report. The boys have learned that all the historical figures other than Napoleon are locked up, and Ted's dad won't let them out. The boys play the time game to work around his dad's authority. They get busted, breaking the guys out of jail, but play the time game once more and escape. They make their way to the high school, and just as it's wrapping up, they interrupt what was the conclusion of the presentations and begin their presentation, introducing and discussing key points about each one of the historical figures they brought to the present. Ending the adventure, the boys agree it's time for them to learn to play. Rufus appears with the babes. He leaves them with the boys. Rufus tells the boys why they are so important. Rufus plays a riff for the boys. And we have end of movie. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is one of the earliest movies I can recall in my movie watching days. It is a simple yet fun and exciting movie, and one I can watch over and over. This movie is PG, so even the kids can get into it and enjoy it. I know mine did. Thanks once again for tuning in to What's the Word on That Movie podcast play-by-play. I am your host, your voice, Daniel Lawrence, and I will see you next time.